In July, Texas Comptroller Glenn Hagar warned lawmakers the state would face a budget shortfall of more than $4.6 billion. That was the projected impact of COVID-19 on sales tax and oil and gas revenue. Last week, Hagar gave lawmakers an update. He told them the situation is not as dire as he originally thought it would be.
Overall, in the second half of fiscal year 2020, sales taxes fell by 4.8% relative to a year ago, while many other revenue sources exhibited double-digit declines over that time.
Oil and gas revenues are still suffering, but Hagar says sales tax revenue has been a bright spot. That's a big deal because it's the largest revenue source for the state budget. As you heard Hagar say, sales tax collections are down nearly 5%, but he said that's a much smaller decline than he originally predicted. Texas has yet to spend $3 billion of federal coronavirus relief funds before the year-end deadline. Governor Greg Abbott controls how that money is spent during the pandemic. Politics reporter John Engel breaks down Abbott's plan for the rest of the money.
Transparency is really what this is all about.
Governor Greg Abbott has 1 month to spend the state's Use It or Lose It CARES Act funds. Of the $11 billion Texas received, $3.2 billion immediately went to cities and counties with more than 500,000 people, leaving Abbott with $8 billion to spend by December 30th. Austin State Rep Donna Howard has fought to find out where that money is going.
We just want to ensure that we know what the plan is and have some say in how we're going to be pushing these dollars to Texans who need them most.
The governor's office tells me they've spent $4.5 billion of the $8 billion they had control over. They plan to send $1.45 billion to the Departments of State Health Services and Emergency Management, leaving $2 billion on the table.
There are more people who need assistance.
The city of Austin has helped more than 2,000 households each month using $9 million in CARES Act funds. Now they're nearly tapped out. Without more federal or state funds, it's unclear how many they'll be able to help out in the new year.
To date, nothing has changed in the economic well-being, especially of vulnerable households.
For State of Texas, I'm John Engel.
As John mentioned, State Representative Donna Howard is pushing for CARES Act funding to get to Texans in most need. Here's more of our conversation with her about the need and the hopes moving forward.
There's a lot of need. Clearly, we know that we still have needs with people who have lost their jobs and are no longer getting federal stimulus checks. We know from what the comptroller said that this is a way that our economy can be continue to grow is if Texans have dollars in their pockets to spend to help take care of the needs that they have. That's an obvious one. We know that we have more uninsured now with people that have lost their employer-based insurance, and that we don't have any kind of a safety net system established for those folks to actually access health care. That's an area. I always refer to our public schools too, which certainly got some reimbursement of dollars in the spring when they closed down and have had some dollars spent on connectivity and devices. But all of the things that they've been doing to prepare the buildings and the staffing to accommodate safe reopening in the fall, there's been no upfront money for that. And we don't know what that reimbursement is going to look like. And one more thing that I think is really important that I've just come across as a potential use would be the shortage of nursing personnel that we have. This is a pandemic. We've got shortages all over the world. We can't recruit nurses in the same way. That being said, a lot of people still want to come to Texas. And according to the Board of Nursing, if we could invest some more dollars into what's needed to help expedite the licensure process, we could get an additional 1,000 nurses between now and the end of this year by infusing a fairly small portion of those CARES dollars. So there's lots of things I could suggest.
Is rental assistance, and it kind of works in that same world as you talking about people's jobs. Is that an area where you think that the state could say, look, it's great that we have a vaccine on the horizon, but just because there's one on the horizon doesn't mean these next few months might not be painful for a lot of Texans?
Oh, clearly. And housing is already a key issue and is going to be even worse As we've been told by the Austin Chamber, 35 to 40% of the jobs that have been lost are probably not coming back. We're going to have some huge retraining efforts that are going to have to go on here, but also, just as you say, the assistance to be able to stay in your own home, to put food on the table, those kinds of things. And as you point out, even when the vaccine becomes available, it's going to be a rollout. It's not going to happen overnight. The essential workers are going to get the first vaccines, but it's going to be toward the end of next year probably before we have the full implementation of that vaccine being administered.
Lastly, I'd like to know what you, as an Austin representative, would say to that Austinite who is needing that extra check or is needing some help with the rent and is worried about whether that's going to come through, given the discourse that's in Washington, and given that they haven't seen anything from the state of late. What would your message be to them right now?
Boy, that is a tough one. I know that these are my neighbors. These are real people who are suffering and who do not know sometimes how they're going to make it through the next day, much less the next month. I hope that the services that the state provides, that we can get more of those dollars out there in the remaining month that we have these dollars to disperse. I know that the city of Austin could use more. I know that we have wonderful philanthropic groups here in town who are trying to make sure that we have what we need for the food scarcity that exists. But I want to be hopeful, and I want there to be the safety net we need to have in place. I want people to hold on, but I know that that's words, and that we need to back that up with the actual dollars and programs to make sure that we are taking care of our neighbors.
Some relief for Texans could come from the federal government. Congress is still negotiating a stimulus bill. It's been held up for months, but one looming deadline could push lawmakers to take action.
We also have to approve a federal budget by next Friday, the 11th. If that's not done, there would be another government shutdown. And so that gives an action forcing mechanism where we could combine that with some additional relief. Undoubtedly not everything we passed back May the 15th, but something to help those who are so much in need, and particularly our cities and counties that could do a better job of adapting to these local needs.
Stimulus fund plans have been stuck on Capitol Hill in part because each side wants something the other just won't agree to do. Republicans want liability protections. Those would prevent people affected by COVID-19 from suing businesses. Democrats oppose those measures. Meanwhile, Democrats have pushed for more federal aid for state and local governments. Republican leaders have rejected those requests. Advocates look to make sure politicians back up their promises to support underage Texans behind bars.
I know I'm going to be one that's going to do everything I can to make sure this will follow through and that we can get some of those monies down all the way here to our local level.
How a new leadership could shape plans to reform the juvenile justice system.